Om. Saha nāvavatu, saha bhunaktu, saha viryam karvavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be protected, may we be nourished, may we do brave work, may our work be glorious. May there be no conflict among us. May there be peace, peace, peace. Welcome everyone. Can someone just confirm if they can see and hear me properly? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, welcome everyone. Like we have changed our session format recently, we will start with meditation and then we will get into our discussion about Dhāraṇā, the 6th stage of yoga. So, before that, we will begin with 20 minutes of meditation. Make yourself comfortable while I set timer for 20 minutes. Okay. So just a brief description about what we are going to do today in our group meditation. It will involve Om chanting. So what we will do is we will begin like we normally do, take a few deep breaths, and then we will chant Om for 21 times. And after that, we will just internally continue to chant Om. So first 21 times it will be vocal, out loud. I mean, not loud as in you need to shout, but loud as in you can feel the vibration within your body, right? So you can, in your deepest voice, you can start chanting Om, something like that. Okay, so 21 times Om chant, and then the same sound that we produce while chanting Om vocally, we have to try to continue listening to that sound within our mind. So that is the basic meditation that we will be doing today. And one more thing also is while we chant Om and while we continue to try to listen the sound of Om, we have to keep our focus to our heart center in the chest region. You know, in the center of our chest, we want to keep our attention at that point. Okay, that's pretty much what we are going to do for next 20 minutes, and I am trying to explain it right before we start so that during the session we will not have a lot of instructions. Okay, we want to reduce instructions as we are going into deeper parts of yoga. We want to eliminate all external supports and we want to turn completely inwards, right? So this is important that we reduce instructions. So let's begin. Make yourself comfortable, rock back and forth so that you can find your comfortable position. You can close your eyes, remove your specs. Keep both of your hands in your lap. Let's take a couple of deep breaths in and out. Let's inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Let's inhale one last time and exhale. Allow your breathing to return to its normal pace. Let your body relax and be comfortable. Let your body be completely still. As you inhale and exhale normally, pay attention to the slight movement in the belly as it expands with inhale and collapses with exhale. Let's begin chanting Om 21 times verbally. Inhale deeply, and as you exhale, chant Om as long as you can. Keep your attention at your heart center and keep chanting Om mentally now. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinaḥ, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaśyid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the merits of our practice be shared by all. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see good. May nobody ever suffer. May there be peace. 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 Join your palm together. Rub them against each other. Cup your eyes with the warmth. And slowly open your eyes, looking at your palm. So, today in our meditation, we had very less instructions. And this is the route that I want to transition into, because we have already discussed about all the external limbs of yoga: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara as well. Pratyahara is considered somewhat, some texts consider pratyahara as an external limb, some other authors consider it as the internal limb. But that is also over. So now we are in the domain of completely internal stages of yoga. The chant, what is the meaning of chant, is a question in the chat. Is it religious? So, and I think the answer has also been given. Sarve, bhavantu, sukhinaḥ. It is a well-being chant. You can consider it a metta practice. Metta is the a word which is very synonymous, or the same word is Maitri. It is called in Sanskrit, and when it goes into Pali, it becomes metta. So it is for the universal friendship, to inculcate that feeling. We wish good for everyone. That is what the meaning of the chant is. And when I chant, I also translate it afterwards. So it is actually the same. I'm not chanting a different thing and then saying something else, but it's basically the translation of the chant itself. Okay, and we were discussing about how our meditations are going to be from here onwards. If we are going to do a special kind of practice, then I will instruct still, but what I want is we all become independent. Like, it's good to start with guided meditation, but my view is, as we progress further on this path, we should be in a position that we should be able to meditate anywhere, anytime, whether it be 5 minutes or whether it be 1 hour. So you don't have that dependency of having a guided meditation and search for the exact duration, that time which you have available. So you want to be completely independent of all these external factors. That's what we are also learning about when we are going into the internal limbs of yoga. Now today's topic is Dhāraṇā. We have already discussed up to Pratyahara. What is Dhāraṇā? In Yoga Sutra, Dharana, the definition of dharana in Yoga Sutra comes in the 3rd chapter, and the first verse of the 3rd chapter says, Desh bandhash chittasya dharana. And to understand the meaning of, before we get into the meaning of this verse, let's see a little difference from all the previous practices and dharana. One difference we already discussed, that all the other things that we have discussed so far are external limbs of yoga. And what we are going to discuss from now on is completely internal aspects of yoga. Internal aspects, when I say, it means that it only involves all the internal faculties of our body, of our mind and everything, right? Unlike what we had in asana, where we need to have we need to place our hands in a certain way, we need to place our legs in a certain way, or pranayam, where we inhale and exhale and still use our hands to close one nostril, open another nostril, and so on and so forth. Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi, these 3 things that we will be discussing are completely internal aspects. That is one thing for sure. But if we see the way the Patañjali Yoga Sutra book is compiled, the book has 4 different chapters. The first chapter is called Samadhi Pad, where the author discusses mostly about Samadhi, which is the final stage of yoga. He discusses mostly about Samadhi because he wants to give an idea to the reader that what is the end goal. Why are we even going to start this practice? So in the first chapter, he discusses mostly about Samadhi. He gives the definition of yoga, and then he also tells what are the problems, what is the nature of the mind, and what we are going to do with the practice of yoga. What are some of the hurdles in the path of yoga? All of that is in first chapter. The second chapter is called Sadhan Path. So sadhana, the word sadhana means practice. Sadhana. So that is the second chapter, where we also discuss about yama, niyama, asana, pranayam and pratyahara. The 5 first limbs of yoga are discussed in Sadhana Pad, the second chapter, which deals about the practice. And then the 3rd chapter starts, which is called Vibhuti Pada. Now, the word Vibhuti, comes from the word Bhut, and Bhut basically means the physical. Bhut basically means the physical, because the 5 elements of nature, fire, earth, water, air and ether, these 5 elements together are called Pancha Mahabhut, the 5 great bhutas, 5 great physical things that we find in nature. And from that same word Bhut, this Vibhuti word also comes. But the word Bhuta is prefixed with the word Vi. So Bhuta and Vi becomes Vibhuti. Now Vi basically means beyond. So the complete meaning of word Vibhuti becomes beyond physical. And that's the chapter, 3rd chapter, where it discusses all the practices, all the things that happen when somebody goes beyond physical. And that's where Dhāraṇā is mentioned. It is not mentioned in the 2nd chapter, which is Sadhana Pad, the practice, but it is mentioned in the 3rd chapter, which is Vibhuti Pad. So Dhāraṇā is one of the aspects of yoga which can take us beyond physical. That is one understanding why Dhāraṇā is placed in the Vibhuti Pad. Another meaning of the word Vibhuti is also the gains. How should I say? This is not actually gains, but you might be aware of the word Siddhi. Siddhi is like when you do some practice and at the end you accomplish something, right? Accomplishments. That is Siddhi. So in the 3rd chapter, Vibhuti Pad, it also discusses about Siddhis, accomplishments. So placing dharana in the third chapter, Patanjali is also indicating that this stage of yoga, dharana, the sixth stage, is not just practice but also accomplishments. Not everybody will be able to practice this if they have not accomplished enough to be able to practice it well. So what it basically means is that before you step into dharana, before you even approach this, you have to have certain level of command over the practices that has been mentioned before. The practices which have been mentioned before is possible to be done by anybody. But what is mentioned in chapter 3, starting from Dhāraṇā, is something that you need some kind of baseline to start with. Without that baseline, you will not be able to do. This is important to understand, that the sixth limb of yoga, dharana, needs preparation. Without preparation, you cannot attempt it. Even if you attempt, it's most of the time will not go into staying on that sixth stage, but most of your time will automatically shift to perfecting the previous 5 steps. So if you start to do dharana, your body will start reacting in a certain way that your posture will not be stable. So you will have to ultimately, knowingly or unknowingly, continue to work on your posture. Your breathing will not be proper. So you may feel some kind of issue when you are breathing. So you have to regulate your breath in a certain way. So your pranayam is weak. The practice of pranayam is weak. That is what is indicated by that. Your mind will not be stable. The practice of pratyahar is weak, right? So all of that will automatically start showing up when you attempt dharana. Now, coming to the definition of dharana. It is desha bandhaschittasya dharana. What it means, the first word is desha. Desha basically means place. In common language, we convert in Hindi, the word desh basically means country. But in Sanskrit, desh basically means place. Bandhash, bandha means to hold. Chit means mind. So, desh bandhash chittasya, that means holding the mind in a particular place is dharana. And that's why it is also often translated as concentration. There is a interesting story, but for concentration also, even if you want to concentrate on something in the physical world, outside, external world, material world, external world, whatever you say, even if you want to concentrate on something, one of the primary things that you need to do is remove distractions. You can't, if you want to study, even somebody who is not that learned, somebody who is not, it doesn't require a master's degree to know that if you want to study something, you can't go into market to study. You need to find a calm, quiet place to study something, right? The calm and quiet place will be more suitable for studying something compared to, say, a loud and noisy market. It's common sense. Why? Because the calm and quiet place has less distractions. So for concentration, one of the prerequisites is distraction. One of the prerequisites is removal of distractions. And that's why pratyahar is placed before dharana. Before you start concentrating on anything, before you start putting your mind, trying to hold your mind in one place, you need to remove every other object from vicinity so that your mind cannot quickly jump off, right? So like monkey mind is always compared with monkey. If you want to keep monkey in one place, you need to remove all the branches from vicinity. If there is no branch in the vicinity to jump onto, monkey will have no choice but to stay on that same tree. That is the simple logic. Why pratyahar is kept before dharana. There is this a story about Bodhidharma. And so some people from far south wanted to learn Zen, and they learnt that, okay, Bodhidharma, somewhere on one of the mountains in north, is a monk known as Bodhidharma, and he is the best person to learn Zen from. So they started their voyage going, they thought they will find Bodhidharma and they will learn from him. Fine. So they set out for that endeavor. And at that time, there were no Google Maps or even, the modes of transports like we have today. So they traveled long and far on foot, sometimes maybe on bullock cart or something, right? But mostly on foot. And it took them good amount of time to figure out where Bodhidharma is and where is the path and how to go there, which is the right path. And in between there were nights, so many nights, so they had to also stay in various places, and it was long, tiresome travel to the place where Bodhidharma was. And then they finally reached the foothills of the mountain, and there were so many stairs. They climbed all that stairs, completely exhausted. They reached where Bodhidharma was, and they reached there, and they saw Bodhidharma is drinking soup. So they bowed down. They explained all that happened with them, how far they have traveled and from where they have come. And they were trying to explain that they have taken so much of trouble to come here, so we want to learn Zen, please teach us Zen. That's their request. And all that before that were their preface of why you should immediately teach us Zen, because we have taken so much of trouble to come here. Bodhidharma is drinking his soup. One of the attendant was there. Bodhidharma asked attendant, serve them soup as well. So the attendant gave them soup, and Bodhidharma is still drinking his soup. They also started drinking his soup, thought, okay, maybe after drinking the soup, he will tell what is that. And Bodhidharma is like slowly drinking the soup, taking every sip and enjoying every sip like his first ever sip or maybe the last sip, completely being in the moment. And obviously it is taking time for finishing that ball. They finish their ball fast, so that if they finish it up, then the time will come when they can learn about Zen. But they see the bowl of Bodhidharma, it is, not even half. He has not even finished half of the soup. They become completely, impatient. And that's when Bodhidharma says, you were drinking soup and thinking about Zen, that if I finish this soup, I will get to learn what Zen is. But I am drinking my soup. I am drinking my soup. I am drinking my soup. This is Zen. What he wanted to indicate there is, when you are doing something, completely being absorbed in what you are doing is Zen. It's not something extraordinary, but it is doing the same ordinary things in extraordinary ways. That is what Dhāraṇā is. Dhāraṇā is concentration to the extent where nothing else can disturb you. Now, as we already discussed, Dhāraṇā is not for everybody. This is the sixth stage of yoga. It's not for everybody in the sense, even if you attempt to do Dhāraṇā, if you have not built that fundamental base for it, then all of your effort will go into settling that foundation first. Automatically, if you sit for 1 hour thinking that you are doing Dhāraṇā, 45 minutes will go in still becoming, comfortable with the body. Maybe 15 minutes will go being comfortable with the breathing. So Dhāraṇā is the practice which is there for people who already have gone through the rigor of Pratyahara. The importance of Pratyahara also we discussed, that Pratyahara is the stage where you completely cut off all sensory inputs, and when you do that, your sense organs starts taking the shape of the mind itself. So you will be able to vividly see what is going on in your head, hear what is going on in your head. If you have not gone through the rigor of that, then what happens is you don't have any control over what you want to see and what you want to hear. Your mind still is active just like a mad monkey. And that's when hallucination begins. You know? When you want to see something, visualize something, and you can see it clearly in front of you, maybe even if it may be imaginary, but if it is something that you want to see and you are able to see, it can lead to so many great inventions. A lot of things that we see today in front of us were visualized by somebody, and then that visualization was brought to reality because they were able to see it as clearly as nobody else was able to see. But if your mind is not settled in the way that it does not take decision for you, then it can lead to hallucinations, visualization of the same intensity, but things that you don't want to see, right? So Dhāraṇā, where you pick an object and then allow your senses to take the form and sound and everything associated with that object, it's only possible when you have already gone through the rigor of pratyahar, where you have already examined your mind in isolation, where you have already examined what are the associations that your mind wants to grasp, and you have already created some distance between those associations. That's where your mind is now ready for your input, what you want to decide. Like it's just, this analogy can help you understand. When farmer prepares the land for sowing the next crop, he keeps the land empty for some time. He will plough the land and keep the land empty for some time. Why? Because if there are any seed or any weeds which have been uprooted, and the seeds of those unwanted plants are still in the ground, so that they may come up and farmer can identify and uproot them. Because if he does not give that time and still sows the next crop, then those weeds will come up along with those crops, and it will be very difficult to identify until few days. By that time they will just keep sucking up the nutrients from the soil or whatever fertilizers or anything that the farmer provides. It's just waste of effort and waste of resources. So he just keeps the land just like that for some time, so that all unwanted things may come up and farmer can see, okay, these are the things that needs to be uprooted completely before sowing the next seed. That is what is pratyahar. You keep the mind completely disengaged for some time and you see what is automatically coming up in the mind, and then you remove that slowly. Once you remove that, now there is no scope for hallucination. There is only scope for what you want to grow on that fertile soil. But how to do dharana, that is also one thing. We understand what is dharana now, and we understand what is the importance of all the previous steps before getting in here. Dharana is keeping the mind at one place. Now this one place is mostly translated as physical, but it also can be non-physical things. For example, it can be a sound, like we did today. We took the sound of Om and tried to keep our mind associated with that one sound. Mantra, it can be a sound. It can be an image. So you can visualize lotus, for example. Lotus is the visual imagery that is used, in many places in scriptures, and we have also discussed the importance of that imagery. So you can visualize a lotus. You can visualize a form of deity, and that's where it becomes, it goes a little bit into bhakti as well. There is a verse which says that in the beginning you need a form, then you can move on to symbol. Once your mind is stabilized into the form, then you can move into the symbol. Once it is stabilized in the symbol, then you can move into the sound. Once it is stabilized in the sound, then you can leave that and be free. You can stabilize yourself in the self itself. So this is the general progression, because human mind is always seeking for form and name and form, right? You can see the history throughout. Anywhere people tried to completely remove form from contemplation, one or the other way form automatically entered. For example, I'll give you example from, say, Islam. In Islam, there is no form of the divine. You can't make a picture of something and pray that. But if you have seen, most of the practitioners will have a picture of Makkah. That is still a picture, that is still a form, cuboidal form, right? So similarly in Sikhism also, there also is a concept that the God is formless and it should not have the form. But then there is a form in the form of Guru Granth Sahib, in the form of a book, and that book is kept and people go and see that book. People take care of the book as if it is divine. It contains divine revelations, so it's fine. But the point is that there is always a form that the mind seeks. If there is no form, for example, in Hinduism, there was a rishi who was Dayanand Saraswati. So he took the part of Hinduism where it is explained that the God is formless. So he created his whole organization, and he was against worshipping idols and all. But after he passed and all these years have passed, there are places, there are schools and universities where the statue of Dayanand Saraswati, that sage himself, is there, and people worship that. The point is that human mind seeks form. Even people pray to the statue of, people go and watch the statue of Buddha, people keep the photograph of Buddha, and so many ways people seek form in one way or another, right? So form is the first thing. Then you can transition to a symbol, which is not the form exactly in the way that a human form or an identifiable form, but maybe a symbol. For example, Shri Yantra. You might have heard of yantras. So yantras are symbols. Shivaling. It is not the form of Shiva in the way we depict it in images, but it is a form, it is a symbol that symbolizes the existence of Shiva. So then you can move to symbol, and then you can even simplify it to just a sound like Om, and then you even can leave that. But that there has to be a gradual progression, otherwise your mind will, bounce back to the form. If you don't give it a sacred form, the form that can give you teachings, the form that can give you guidance to move further, it will choose a form which may not have these qualities. So better give it a better form than to allow it to choose its own form to contemplate over. That's the whole idea. But those are the ways in which you do dharana. You can take a form, you can take a sound, and then there are points where you have to concentrate your mind. You have to keep your attention. So in today's meditation, we kept our attention in the heart center, which is considered which is the most recommended place to keep our attention at. But apart from this, there are other places also where you can keep your attention. So you can keep your attention actually on any of the 7 chakras, from Mooladhara, Swadhisthana in the navel center. You can keep in the heart center. Obviously, you can keep on the throat center. On the tip of the nose also, you can keep your attention. You can keep your attention on in between the eyebrows, or you can keep your attention on top of your head, which is called Brahmarandra. So you can keep any of these places, but you don't really have to keep moving. You can keep it at one place until your attention is stabilized. Once your attention has stabilized, then you can do that practice also, where you keep rotating your awareness. That's the next stage of dharana. So that is pretty much about dharana. Anything else I am thinking if is important to be discussed here? Yeah, one more thing is, dharana is the practice. It is one of the accomplishments as well as it is a practice. So you can see in dharana how there can be different ways of doing it. Somebody can do dharana on a form, somebody can do dharana on a chakra, somebody can do dharana on a sound, right? There can be different ways of doing it. Somebody can even do dharana on nothingness. If you are capable, if your mind is already refined to the extent where it can associate with nothingness, then good enough. You can do even dharana on nothingness. But this is not dhyāna, this is dharana. And that's why it is a practice, and because it is a practice, there are different ways to practice. Dhyāna or meditation is the next stage, which we are going to discuss in next session. Today, what happens is, most of the time people talk of meditation, but instructions are for dharana, concentration. Not concentration, even keeping the attention on something, even keeping the attention on the breath, or keeping the attention on the attention itself. Keeping your awareness, being aware of the awareness, like people say, right? Even that is dharana, because there is a method associated with it, because there is something that you need to do. But when we will discuss more about meditation, the next stage, and you will know how meditation is different from this. This is where you start, and meditation is where you land. Meditation is not something that you do. Meditation is something that happens. We will discuss that in the next session. I think this should be good enough for dharana today. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. If somebody has any question or want to share any experience, they can join me on stage while I read the chat. You can raise your hand and I will invite you to speak on stage. Or you can also type your thoughts in the chat. Isn't it the same as bhakti? Dharana. Can you send your more authentic website resources? If you scroll down on the side, there will be more chants like this. Okay. Isn't it the same as bhakti? It's not actually same as bhakti, because dharana is a practice where you can choose any object for directing your attention, for keeping your attention on one place. So you can even choose, say, a lotus. Now, lotus has nothing to do with any religion. Lotus has nothing to do with any, even bhakti. You can keep your attention on breathe, right? Your breath. Breath also has nothing to do with bhakti. The correlation with bhakti comes because Patañjali himself, while explaining dharana, says that the best sound to keep your attention fixed at is Om. The best place to keep your attention fixed at is heart. The best form to keep your attention fixed at is the form of your Ishta Devta. Ishta Devta is the favorite deity. So he has given these recommendations, and that's why it seems overlapping, but you can completely keep it out of bhakti. If you are a Jnana yogi, for example, if you are a person who is more interested in knowledge aspect, not interested in bhakti, you can keep whatever concept that you can visualize. Maybe you can just try to visualize openness, for example, or you can try to experience limitlessness. Those will be difficult for most. That's why Patanjali did not suggest any of those. So you see that overlap there, but still it is separate as a practice. Okay. So I think if we don't have any interested speaker, or any further question or anything, then maybe we can close this session now. When images become idols. When images become idols. Images don't become idols actually. Images are, this question is like, when does window become the lawn? Window does not become the lawn. Window is the outlet to see the lawn which is already outside. So images don't become idols. Idol are there, and images are like our window to see through that image into that idol. I mean, from the English perspective, if you say it is just like image is a two-dimensional thing and idol is a three-dimensional form, that's one thing for sure. But even if you say three-dimensional form, a three-dimensional form does not, just because it is a three-dimensional form, does it become worship worthy? No. Unless you have gained the ability to see the worshipful aspect of deity through that three-dimensional form, it is not worshipful. So you will see even the idols of all the deities and everything is created by someone, right? It's created by a human being. So the human being will, if they are creating, say, some of the statues are even 60 feet, 70 feet, big, 112 feet, all this. So when they carve those statues, sometimes they have to step on the statue. Just because it is a statue, it has a certain form. If it is worshipful, the mason or the creator of that idol should not be allowed to step on it, and the clay with which some of the idols are formed, the person who makes those idols, they use their feet to mix the clay with water so that they can start giving shape to that clay. When does it become worshipful? So there is a whole process of how a three-dimensional form suddenly becomes deity. That process is called prana pratishtha. Prana pratishtha is like pratishtha is establishment, and prana, we know prana is life force. So there is a whole science and process behind what mantras have to be chanted, how they have to be chanted, how the idol has to be prepared, how many days this ritual has to go on. All of that is prescribed, and if done in that particular order, in that particular manner, then the life force is established in that form or picture. Then it becomes worshipful, then it becomes the deity. So an image or idol does not become deity all by itself. There is a process through which we request the divine to manifest itself in that form, and when it manifests in that form, then we say that now it is something that we should worship. Otherwise it's not. Otherwise also, if you have that capability to see divine in everything, you will worship everything. But for normal people, they cannot recognize it as the divine. There is very recently, one of the temple was opened in India, the Ram temple in Ayodhya. So the person who carved the statue, which is placed inside that temple, that same person visited the temple after 2 days of Pran Pratishtha, the ritual in which the life force is infused inside that idol. So the creator of that idol, after visiting the temple, coming out, he in one of the interviews said, I myself created this statue, like I spent 6 months creating each and every minute detail of this statue, right? So I know this statue better than anyone else. I placed this statue on this podium when it was placed there. I was seeing everything, that nothing should break, if something needs to be corrected or anything. I was looking after all of that. And then I went back, and then all the rituals of Pran Pratishtha, the ritual happened. Now, when I visited, I cannot even recognize that idol. It's not my work. My work was good, but this is something different. That's what he said. And this interview is available on the internet. Anybody can go and see that. So there is a particular way in which idol is treated, and with complete devotion and with the power of Vedic mantras, the divine is requested to establish himself, at least in a part in that form, and then the form is worshipped. Does that answer your question, when images become idols? Can meditation experiences ever be frightening? Yes, it can be frightening, and that's what I was explaining when I was talking about somebody who has not gone through the rigor of pratyahar is suddenly trying to close their eyes and suddenly trying to make peace with their mind, and the mind is still not under the control. So mind will start showing things that they don't want to see, probably in most cases, and that's where it can become frightening for sure. And that is why there is this whole step-by-step process of purifying the mind itself. Starting from yama and niyama, you are involved in practices which will stop accumulating negative impressions in your mind. So whatever negative impressions you have by that time, kind of you stop your balance at that point, and you don't acquire new negative impressions. So whatever negative impressions you have, they will definitely come out as experiences, as situations, but at least you are not creating any new. So imagine that there is a container, and from that container there is a tap on the top, which is from where water is flowing into that container, and then there is a tap, there is an outlet from that container. So you have to, if you ever want that container to be empty, you have to stop the inlet also, right? Then only after some time the accumulated balance will go out. But if you keep putting things at the same time, you also, how much ever you try to empty that, it will have its own pace, and if the pace of input is greater, then it will never be empty. So yes, the meditation experience can be frightening, but if you follow the step-by-step process, if you take care of what needs to be done before attempting something like some advanced practices, if you follow what are the fundamentals before attempting the advanced practices, then you can save yourself from a great deal of problems. Does that answer your question? Okay, I think that is it for today. Thank you everyone for joining me, and hope to see you all next week, when we will be discussing about meditation, the 7th stage, and then maybe or may not we will touch up a little bit on samadhi, because in today's world there are a lot of false positives, right? So we don't want to give idea of something to people, and that idea becomes the goal that they want to achieve. A lot of time your mind, your intellect will trick you thinking that you have achieved. So better, for some things we keep it unexplored until we experience it firsthand. But we will see how we are going to deal with that topic, or should we skip that? That we will decide later on. But thank you again for joining me today, and hope to see you Next time, we'll conclude. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.